Hello and welcome to a very special Film Ireland podcast in partnership with the Galway Film Fleadh, which takes place until the 14th of July, so we have a few days left. And as the festival gets well underway, we are chatting to a number of talented filmmakers whose shorts are featuring the programme. I'd love to welcome Aisha Bolaji and her film Why the Sun and Moon Live in the Sky, Jackson Lennon and his film Farfalle, as well as Paudie Baggott and his focus short Pete. Okay, so thank you guys so much for joining us.
No problem at all. Thank
you very much.
Thanks for having us.
There's three very different, very exciting, very unique shorts that we're going to be discussing today that we'll be screening at the Galway Film Fleadh. And I'm so excited to, well, just see them because they were such strong voices. And then just be delighted that we're all going to be down in Galway celebrating films like this. It's brilliant. Very shortly. I'm going to just go and ask everybody if you can introduce yourself and describe your short first, just so we can kind of place everyone. And I'll start with you, Aisha.
Cool. So hi, I'm Aisha Bolaji, and my short film is called Why the Sun and Moon Live in the Sky. The film is a retelling of like a Nigerian folklore in like a small Irish town context. So we follow two Nigerian Irish teenagers sort of facing growing up. So to avoid that fate, they build a spaceship to go live in the sky.
That's beautiful. And how much did you deviate from the original subject matter?
I think like so much. Like I think like obviously like in the original folktale, like you're dealing with the actual physical sun and moon and like the sea and things. But in the retelling, I sort of made them teenagers and made like the community like sort of like the ocean and the water around them, and like that being what's sort of over consuming and like too much to handle. But yeah, so like definitely a lot, but like it's definitely all sort of what is like the creative thread throughout the film is the best way to put it. Yeah.
And it's so stunning. It's so unique visually. Like I'm trying to think of comps. It's very. I can't think any come to mind. Like a version of Wes Anderson. There's beautiful like animated elements to it. It's stylized. It's so unique in that portrayal. So it's gorgeous. Yeah. So beautiful watch. And Paudie.
My name is I'm Paudie Baggott. My film's called Pete, and it is a dark comic fantasy about a recently widowed woman who lives with her adult son, who's absolutely useless. And now that the dad is dead, she basically has to do the housework and the bog work on her own. So her witchy neighbor convinces her to build a magical man from turf, and she ends up falling in love with it. And then, of course, her man boy son finds out and doesn't enjoy it so much.
I love this. I want to go into like the writing of it a little bit more, but it's so the like it's quite in a way it's quite a sad theme. And like the comps for this, I kind of thought it was like a kind of supernatural Black Mirror in vibes. Like it's kind of dry but I mean there's real dynamics behind it and family dynamics that are in truthful, but the tone is very, very funny. Okay, so I know for focus shorts they're supposed to be about 10 in script stage. Did you always know this was going to be longer, or was it something you kind of found?
No, I mean it's actually quite interesting. I mean, I think we ended up with a script that was maybe like 14 pages, and then which was interesting itself, because it's say like a minute a page, but actually what happened was I just ended up taking words out. I did that thing of like, instead of just taking bits out, I kind of just took words out and condensed all of the language down so much that when we went to shoot it just kind of expanded out again, because it actually wasn't gone. It just was compacted.
Like you zipped your script file.
Yeah, basically. And I guess for me, it's like, the length of a film is not as important as the pace of a film, because I've seen 4-minute films that felt like 20-minute films, and I've seen 20-minute films that felt like 4-minute films. and we did a whole process. Like we did a test screening of this film. Like we did it in the cinema. Like we did a whole kind of overkill on to make sure that I wanted to make sure the story was moving along, that it wasn't kind of dragging. And for me, it was more important that the pace was right rather than the length was right. And obviously, you always want to make a shorter short because just from a programming perspective, it makes it easier. But ultimately, I didn't want to cut the legs out from under it. So yeah, no, I kind of had the story and I beated the story out, and it always kind of came to between 14 and 17 pages.
And the banter and dialogue really do play such a crucial part in conveying the humor of this as well, because like there's a lot of levity in that if actually taken out of context, there could have been like a darker version of like
Yeah,
that
I think
lent heavier into the kind of more sinister themes of it. But that's kind of that nice like showing of character.
yeah, I mean for me it's like, I grew up in the countryside. It's basically just it basically just me kind of um thinking about my own childhood and how I was as a kind of a ballsy teenager and the kind of attitude that I had. And so a lot of that stuff is phrases that either I would have used or I would have heard my brothers use, and and my mom, and that kind of passive aggressive back and forth. But yeah, it was important to me that it was realistic, I guess, and grounded, but funny, because I guess all of the stuff that I tend to make is some version of our comedy. And I don't, sometimes, I mean, drama can be amazing, but quite often drama can also just be like unnecessary, just browbeating. It beats you down to make you feel bad rather than feel, for the characters. You just end up feeling bad for yourself and humanity. And for me, it was important that we kept the humanity and we kept the drama of the thing, but that it still had a humorous core kind of running through it.
Yeah, definitely. And even I think there's a nice kind of visual language to that as well, where, like a look and those kind of beats and that pacing really um like yeah, and you don't know, I think I was saying that you don't fully know where it's leading as well, where it's, like because like elements are dark and even Chris's character is such a dick.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um
no, he's and but also he has a redemption moment at the end, which I
yeah.
thought for me was important because again, I didn't want this to be a kind of a binary, easy kind of like the young man's an asshole and the mother's a saint. It's like no, they're both in it. Like they both created one another, and it's yeah, it was important for me, I guess, the characters felt like grounded, real human beings rather than you know that he was just an avatar, like a straw man character that was there to serve a certain purpose and just that.
Brilliant. And Jackson.
Yeah, yeah. Hi. So, my name is Jackson Lennon, and my short film is called Farfalle, and it's based around a young transgender man who falls in love with his family's exchange student, and she kind of teaches him that love goes beyond the body, despite what's going on in the world.
And it's beautiful. It's very the tone of it, I think it's hard to do sort of sincerity if you're like as a director, if you're working with an audience, but this is just very earnest and um like beautiful to watch and kind of it's almost kind of reminiscent of old school romances, like from the 90s and the 80s where, it's a kind of simple love story and it's and that kind of chemistry is there. It's a really gorgeous watch. And what's so interesting about this is you crowdfunded it, did you?
We did, yeah. So I had this script on like the back burner for the longest time, and I wasn't sure if it was something I would ever talk about or not. But I think it's important. Like this film is based off my first experience with my first love, and I'm still friends with her to this day. It literally was my family's exchange student. When I go to Italy, me and my fiance, we hang out with her. She's so lovely, and she's still waiting to get the film with the Italian subtitles because she's like, I won't have a clue if it's in English. So I think like when I had this script, because I'm already engaged, I think there's a lot of misconceptions around, making stories about past loves because people be like, oh, but make one about your partner or make one about your current situation or. But I had a talk with my partner and she was so supportive and she was like, no, of course, like it's an important story. If you want to tell it, you can tell it. And she loves it. And I think, I had it on the back burner for the longest time because of that, because I'm in a long-term relationship and this is a past relationship. But once we crowdfunded, I got the team on board and they were just phenomenal. Like it was probably one of my favorite shoots we've ever done. It was very, very tight. Like, we had like, a massive wagon wheel pizza to kind of feed everybody from his own. He's that kind of budget. But it was one of my favorite shoots I've ever done. And yeah, we were super happy with the crowdfunding. I won't lie, when I got put into this podcast with you guys, I was like, oh my God, our film is so small compared to this. But we were super happy with the money that we raised. Yeah.
No, I think number one, your film is very important for content because I think just having a story like this is like just a beautiful love story that should be watched, that has an element of a trans man finding love and finding acceptance in a space which is just I think it's just nice to have that content just exist and just that's not the point of it. The point is the love story. Um, I think the fact that it's grassroots makes it so interesting. The fact that it's actually there was a hunger for this film to be made, and then that's what made the film is very important as well. So that's why I'll always think crowdfunding is very like it's a very difficult thing. It's think almost in a like for regular filmmakers, we spend our lives doing applications, but like crowdfunding is a job in itself to raise the money. But what you're doing is you've come from a world where you're a content creator yourself and you're kind of changing your tact to do this. And I think that's a really interesting background to come with because you are a storyteller in a different medium. And then you're sort of coming to this medium. But I actually think there's that power because you have an audience. You have people that want to watch your film. Like it's sort of our job now on this side of the fence to find people to watch your film and to hope people are going to go to the flat. But you kind of have that route. So I just think it's very important for so many reasons. And it's also just beautiful. Like it's also lovely. So talk to me about like did you like when you had this as a script, was it an idea or did getting the funds make you put your money where your mouth is to write it?
No, I was actually working on another project with my brother Jordan, and we used to work a lot together. And then, becoming adults, you realize work has to come first. You have to start working, get the bills paid, everything like that. And we were making a kind of like a little feature film over summer last year just to pass the time, to get everybody back together, to just enjoy ourselves. And I was talking to one of the cast members about the idea that I had, but I've been putting it off for years. And she was like, no, 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 like if we have a couple of spare hours when we're sitting here, just write it, just do a very, very rough draft and let me read it. And I was like, okay, okay. So then I wrote one while I was there. We had like a 15-hour shoot day, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna have my laptop here. I'm just gonna write it. Just gonna have like a little bit of a laugh. And I gave it to her the next day, and she came back to me with like tears in her eyes, and she was like, "Make this film, please. Like, please make this film." And I was like, oh God, okay." And then I passed it on to my friend Sean Tracy, and oh my God, he's just phenomenal. Like we weren't very close before the making of this film. We knew of each other, but I was just like, he's just so talented. I really want him on board. So I was like, look, can I send you a script? See what you think of it. If you want to come on board, I'd be super happy. He read it and he loved it. And he was like, I think kind of what you said there yourself. I've seen so many films that center around the transgender experience, and they're all kind of going back to what Paddy was saying. They're all, like make you really sad and like very sympathetic towards the actor, but in all the kind of the worst ways of, these things do happen. Don't get me wrong. It's a daily life for trans people, unfortunately, but I think I just wanted something out there, like you said, like a little notebook for the trans community, or something that just it's just a feel good film that still touches on the topics that it has to touch on. And I think that's why we have, the little lines from Jake's mom where she says, like, I know you feel like the whole world is against you right now, but you deserve love. and never forget that. You're fighting a battle that you'll fight every day. But love is always going to be there, and you have to remember that that's the important factor. And I think, Siobhan is Jake's mom. Her name is never even said. It was in the script, but her name is Siobhan. But she's very much based off my mom, who I absolutely adore. And it was just a film that once I had other people read the script, they were like, no, you need to make this. It was never around the money behind it or anything like that. That was just kind of to help feed the crew, get people from Wicklow down to Dublin, and just kind of make sure everybody was comfortable while they were there, maybe rent a few lights and stuff like that. But I think with or without the crowdfunding, we would have went ahead with it anyway.
And okay, so you wrote the script. Was what you wrote that day more or less what you shot, or did you go back and did you revise it?
Yeah, I definitely revised it. I think, like like a lot of filmmakers, you'll kind of write a script and be like, okay, that needs to half it down and take that character out and push this. I was doing a lot of unnecessary like popping characters in from my childhood and stuff that had no relation to the script, that I was just kind of trying to fill gaps and feed an audience with a story that wasn't anything to do with the actual film itself. But when I really stood back, I was like, this film only needs three characters. Like, it doesn't need my brother, it doesn't need my sister, it doesn't need all these other people. It's literally just Jake and Maria and the mom. And, we had a couple of scenes that were originally written in that we had to compress into one scene. So two scenes became one, and then this scene became that one. But it just ended up working. And it was a lot of kind of, when you have that small of a budget, it's a lot of like, okay, let's just roll with it and see what works, what time we have. If we don't have time, we just cut that scene and we'll make it work. And it was stressful, but we did it. And even with editing, this film was wrapped last November, and we only actually got the editing finished in May or March or May. And I actually drove up to Wicklow to sit with Sean because he is just an absolute whiz when it comes to the computer and editing. I can edit myself, but like you said, very much content creation. I've quite severe ADHD, so trying to sit there and edit a film is just doesn't work very well for me. But Sean was just able, I was able to tell him what I needed and what kind of rhythm I was going for. And he was just click clacking away, and within like 4 hours we had the draft that we were happy with. And we were just like holding each other and like jumping up and down. I actually have a video of like our first reaction to the rhythm of the little kiss scene that they have, and we're just kind of grabbing each other, being like, it's just so wholesome, like we just love it so much. And it was just so nice to have somebody who doesn't experience the trans experience, but he just loved it as much as I did, and that was just so nice.
That is, there's such a beautiful on-screen chemistry that's really natural. And it was like that's actually wholesome is exactly that word where it's like it's earnest, it's just nice and it harks back to that time when you're young and it's your first love and it's like that the kind of innocence of that and the joy of that is
Yeah.
is captured there just so beautifully. And did you find, so you were saying like there was like one or two struggles in terms of, like like the sitting still for the focus, because I'd be similarly inclined myself. But to really kind of like transfer those skills because okay, like in theory it's editing, it's writing, it like you are doing them in a different form, like almost marketing your stuff, and you do have to kind of think of it as a project. Like what would have been the difference that you would have felt going into it? So we'll kind of keep to the beginning of it, and then we'll work our way through all the projects.
The difference between content creation and creating a short film, is
Yeah.
it? I have film roots. Like fun fact, me and Aisha actually went to college together, and I was only there for a month. I was there for a month and I bounced out. I was actually saving for top surgery, so I couldn't afford to still go to college. And then when I deferred the year, I went to go back, and then I didn't get Susie the next year. And then I deferred again because they were like, you can still defer. And I was like, okay, I'll defer again. And then the next year they were like, we're actually splitting it from film and TV to film and TV. So it's a completely different course now. And I was just kind of in my head, I was like, you know what? It's a sign. The universe is telling me you're not meant for college. But I think I love making short films. I always have. I've been making them since I was a kid with my brother. Have I been making them professionally? Not really. We've been picking up a camera and just kind of doing whatever we do. My first real, professional short film that I was ever a part of was I was like the first round of activist creator to be funded. So it was a film again based around the transgender experience of what it was like coming out to my older brother Jordan. We're only a year and 2 weeks apart, so people kind of call us Irish twins. But we were very, very close growing up, and he was always the protective older brother of his little sister. So when I came out to him, he took it quite hard. We grew up in Finglas, which is very much like a lad's lad kind of area.
Yeah.
So he didn't have a lot of education around it. He wasn't very happy with it. So I wrote a film around that experience, and Screen Ireland really liked it. So I was funded as part of that funding scheme, which was amazing. But on the first day, the whole crew showed up with I basically gave them the budget, and I was like, use buy whatever you have to buy. I haven't a clue what to buy. And they showed up with everything. And my mom nearly had a heart attack when she saw the amount of crew in her house, because she was used to it just being me, my brother, and our friend in the kitchen, and that was it. And then 15 people are walking into her little council house kitchen in Finglas, and she's like, "What is going on?" And I was like, "Oh God!" And I think majority of that day of shooting was me having to go into my mom's room, console her, "Mom, we are almost done. Please don't kick us out." And I think I had, over the course of 3 days, I think I had like 4 nosebleeds from stress.
Oh
Like
God.
the first day, I was getting blocked by the directors, and like in the middle of it, he has the thickest Belfast accent. He's like, "Yes, we're going to be doing that. Jackson, your nose is bleeding." And I was like, "What?" And literally, my nose is just gushing. And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm just so stressed. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." But eventually, my mom was like, "Right, you can come back for the second day, but you're only getting half the time I gave you." And I'm like, "Oh God, no." So it was very much, don't ever shoot in family locations again. Like,
Oh
you learn
God,
a
yeah.
lot from your first professional shoot. So yeah, this one was very nice. I live in my own apartment now with my fiance, and I was like, "Look, we're gonna need the house for a couple of days. We're gonna be shooting outside, then we come back in." But we live with her mom as well, and her mom has a background in like theater and drama in Ukraine. So she was like, "Take as much space as you need. It's all good. I'm here. If you need cooking, I can cook stuff for you." And it was just lovely. But yeah, I think I was able to just breathe on this one. I didn't give myself the role of DP, director, writer, producer. I brought in my friends to help out. I was like, "Look, I'm gonna put my hands up and say I'm not a one-man crew. I need as much help as I can get." And my friends were very lovely to step in and help with that. They were all just phenomenal. I think the little mini crew that we had just did an amazing job. Like, there's not as I can't say enough good things about them, honestly.
Amazing. And Aisha, like I want to stay first on the writing process for you, because this is like it's a beautiful piece. It's surreal. It's very intimate. Um and then yeah, like how, like, okay, so you're adapting it, you're working on the drafts. How many drafts would you do then?
I think for me with Sun and Moon, initially it was shortlisted for like the Virgin Media Top 10, like in like 2022. So I was sort of able to like I only had to do like 3 or 4 drafts of that because I also had like a script editor blotting it. So it was very like sort of seamless process, which I'm not used to, because usually I'm like pulling my hair out trying to write things. But I think at that point, like that was a story that I was very much like, oh, I'd like to write this for myself. I don't know if it'll get made because of like certain elements to it, and like people might like see what it is on paper and not really understand like the way my style makes it a little easier to actually pull off. But yeah, like I think it took about like 3 or 4 drafts before I was like, okay, I need to like leave it and just go out and like be the director on it now, because I feel like sometimes like as a writer you can get caught up in making like, especially with shorts, you can be on like your 10th or 11th draft, and like at that point something might get to a point where it's like, oh God, like I don't even know what this is anymore. But with that one, because it was also like an adaptation, like the structure was already there for me, and I sort of knew these characters very well. Like I knew what they were feeling. I knew like I really knew the characters, and I sort of knew the world it was in. And like it pulled like a lot from like different reference points. Like I love like cartoons and stuff. So obviously that sort of pulled the weird Charlie Brown, like cut the heads off adults and like have them speak gibberish and things like that. And like with yeah, it's just stuff like that. Like because everything was so very clear in my head as to what it was, it made it like a very, very easy process. Because like now that I'm writing other projects, it can be a bit more difficult because I'm still trying to figure out, okay, what's the world? Like who are these people? But with like Diana and Saul in the film, I knew exactly who they were. And like it sort of felt like putting like the two different parts of myself into like these characters, like the sort of like overachieving, like people pleaser, but also sort of like, oh God, like I don't want to deal with anything. I want to like run away from all my responsibilities. So like it was sort of like the two sides to I feel like every adult at some point. Yeah.
That's it's really lovely. And I think, yeah, you get a strong, even in such a short space of time, you get such a strong sense of the characters and being brought on this amazing journey. In terms of that, like, very unique visual style, um like, how do you go in to achieve this? Is this, so this is something you have in your mind? How do you like explain that to
So,
your
like
process?
definitely like a lot of mood boards and like pulling like images from Pinterest or like looking at films I love or like anime and things like that. And like a lot of conversations with like my cinematographer, like Misha Kettle. So like we sort of sit down, like I'd sort of send him out, like I sent him on like a massive like list of films to watch as well. And like he sat down and he watched all of them. Or like I take a lot of like I pull a lot from music videos and things like that because I love music videos and sort of I think like my big thing with my style as well as a director, I was like, I feel like if like I like to think keep things like colorful and bright because I don't know, I find there to be like something very beautiful at the fact like, oh, like sometimes life looks amazing, but like, like there's some sadder like undertones or whatever it is. And I think like you can really get away with a lot more or something. And I think like it also adds like a strange like storybook feel to it. Like I think as a filmmaker, I don't have like big interest in realism because like for me like the best part about film is that it's not real, like it's you can truly do whatever you want and like like this world doesn't need to match our own, like it's like playing God for like a second and like getting to create and like that's why I think I sort of like being in those like surrealist spaces and like pulling those visual references from there because like I think like where else will I be putting people in like a completely blue space or things like that? So yeah, I think that's sort of like how my visual style sort of like comes out and like what it's stemmed from and things like that.
Beautiful. And that's, I think that's, yeah, it's so striking. And obviously, like, that kind of process, like, in really delving into those worlds, I'd be curious to, how much was the budget?
So we had like a 10K budget, which like isn't like it's not a
Oh,
lot.
that is amazing what you've achieved on that. Like, because that's what I was going to say. Like, that's a lot to have
Yeah.
created, like, built these worlds on something that
I think
was.
like yeah, because I know for me, like I work with production designer Kira Kelly on like some other projects as well. And like she understands my style so much. And like she sort of like when she sort of read like spaceship, she knew I'd want like cardboard and like I wanted it to look like, oh, these kids have thrown together this spaceship. Or even with like the costume designer Kira Farrell, I was like, no, like I want everything to look like so handmade and so, like thrown together, like very like kitchen sink like sci-fi. So yeah, like I think everyone sort of knew what the film was and what that vision was and what the style was. And I think when you have a very clear sort of like process with that, then it becomes a lot easier to like, like not be spending loads on things and like also shooting in 4:3 means there's less to shoot and less to dress which is also handy. And then like my producer, Katie Lee Lynch, like she usually doesn't produce, but she just really enjoyed the script and stuff like that. Like she's just like so resourceful in terms of like sort of like being so like, okay, this is what we need to do to like achieve this. And like I think in that regard, like it was sort of like a massive team effort to like work within that budget and make it like basically push it as far as we can visually was always the priority and like always like try find ways to like put the budget on screen.
Fabulous.
Can I just say, like, when I watched I think what really struck out to me or stood out to me, I mean, it looks amazing, and I'd seen Nisha's one of Nisha's films, that How to Skin a Cheetah, that he'd shot as
Yeah.
well, and which also looks incredible. But it feels like the world, quite often in shorts, I think that the world feels very small, or the world feels like it's just on screen. Whereas in Isha's film, it felt like we were just in the corner of this much bigger world, but you always felt like the bigger world was at the corner, like the edges of the frame. And I thought that was very clever because like 10 grand is not a lot of money at all, but it does not feel like it was a small budget film. It feels like it was a big budget film that you decided, no, we're going to film in this corner of this big budget film rather than
Yeah.
try and make it super widescreen and then potentially stretch your resources so much that it actually doesn't kind of you can't quite pull it off.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Yeah, because Nisha's like unreal with stuff like that. And like, sure, like Jackson was on the film as well. Like he was helping out, which I really appreciate. God, like we were sort of like reusing extras and stuff like that. So like very clever blocking and like trying to figure out how to use like 5 or 6 people and stuff. But yeah, like, just in terms of like shooting on like that small budget was definitely super beneficial, like in terms of like knowing where how to like be resourceful as a director and like how to like be resourceful as like a writer as well. And I think like as I was writing the script, I sort of always knew like, oh, like there's only a certain amount of money I can get to make this as well. So that always comes into play. And like I always sort of want to figure out, obviously there's ways you can like push it further and further, but like if there's ways to keep it contained and it'll still look and feel right, I think that's a blessing to have.
So and stunning. And then Paudie, I think I'd love to talk to you about the writing process. So is there is there a development process with the focus shorts in terms of like do you do many drafts or do you arrive with it almost fully formed?
Um, I mean, for this one, I arrived with it pretty much. The beats of the story were there. Um the major beats were there. They had, there was work to be done afterwards, but it wasn't like we didn't have a script. I mean, we could have had a script editor if we wanted to, but you'd have to arrange that yourself. But there's no uh requirement to have a script editor. But when you're in the meeting, they tend to have Screen Ireland tend to have, usually pretty good notes because they've seen a bajillion scripts. And so I took their notes and I kind of went back and I thought about it myself and, maybe gave a few drafts to some kind of close writer friends and then, yeah, synthesized what I thought was relevant to me. Sometimes you get notes that you're like, yeah, I can see why that person is making that point, but it doesn't resonate with me and I don't, so it doesn't, I'm not going to incorporate it just because it's a good note. Just because it's a logical note doesn't mean it's the right note. Um, and So yeah, it wasn't a massive. I mean, the process of making the film took forever. Like Jackson was talking earlier about shooting in November and not having the film finished and cut till May. And I'm like, oh, the dream! Like, what a short process. I wrote this in, we got funded in 2022, and I shot it in July of last year, and I only finished it about 2 weeks ago.
Oh my God.
Now, obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on as well in terms of VFX and post production stuff. But yeah, all of my films tend to have long gestation and post production periods. But yeah, I don't think it was a massive amount of rewriting. I think we maybe went from draft 5, and I'm a big fan of points, so maybe draft 5 to draft 7.2. I think the 7.2 might have been the shooting draft, and yeah, and I storyboarded the whole thing as well. I made sure to, like, even all the dialogue scenes. I literally storyboarded every single frame of it from frame 1 to the end frame, and then made a little animatic out of that, and got some actor friends to record the lines to try and run the dialogue to make sure that played okay ahead of time. So I was in the process, just a little thing. Read it. I asked them for some feedback in terms of from an acting point of view, from a character point of view. So I got some amazing suggestions there, and then incorporated some of those back into the script. Just kind of lines that really kind of tied stuff together, or ideas that really tied stuff together, or clarified things where things need clarification. But yeah, no, as I say, the writing process wasn't massively long after we got the funds.
And was there ever a slightly different version or anything like that? I'm always interested to, as things develop, some of the things that change.
There was a version of it where the ending was quite different, and it was potentially it was I mean, yeah, I guess from most people's perspective, it was a downer ending, and from my perspective, it was a win, like an up ending. But it felt like too much of a leap from for a short, it felt like too much of a journey to go on. So from the beginning of the story to the end of the story felt like it was too epic to fit into a short. So I kind of had to just give up on that idea. And, if I make a feature of this, I'm like, that's what I'll be hopefully arguing for, is that kind of more quote unquote downbeat ending. But no, by and large, it was kind of all the beats were there. And because I guess, yeah, I don't know why, but it actually was one of the few things that I've written that came quite easily, in terms of like, I kind of knew all along where the things needed to be. I mean, obviously there's still times where I was struggling to try and find the connective pieces, but I knew all the major beats.
Brilliant. And then going into production, like, is there a timeline that you're sort of given that changed, or is that in the acceptable timeline? Because it feels so long.
Yeah. There was a preferred thing. Like I think most, if not all, of the projects that were shortlisted when we were shortlisted have finished and have been screened. I think a lot of them screened last year in Galway. There's a preferred timeline, but also Screen Ireland are, they've been great. They're really kind of project kind of focused. So they don't want to push you into doing something that's going to jeopardize the quality of the project. And obviously with our film, because it has this, it has, I guess, a lot of things going on that maybe a lot of typical drama films don't have. So again, like we had, one of our main characters is a guy in full prosthetics. So like we had to make sure we cast the actor who was comfortable with that, because we couldn't go ahead with the designs, or we could go ahead with the designs, but we couldn't go ahead with the building of that or the sculpting of it until we had the actor, because we had to get the face casts and all the casts done. That process was a lot longer than I think any of us expected. I thought a lot of actors would be very excited to jump at the this kind of what I feel is a pretty unique role in Irish shorts, where you get to play a kind of a creature, but with some kind of empathy, and I found that actually quite difficult, and I got it after a while. I realized I'd actually pitched the character in the wrong way, because what had happened was actors just looked at that going, oh, he's mute, he doesn't have any lines, and I'm just going to be wearing a mask all day. So I could see why people were like, I'm not terribly interested in doing that. I'm going to be uncomfortable for 5 hours just so people can't see my face and can't hear me. But yeah, we eventually got that. So that took a bit of time, that delayed things. And then we just needed kind of a certain amount of weather. Things just took it was very, like, we made it as quickly as we could, realistically, without jeopardizing the quality of the production, I guess. And Screen Ireland would check in and be like, how are you getting on? But they weren't ever, we'd send them cuts, we'd send them proof that we have been kind of consistently working on it, and they were all very supportive. I think I could see the project was progressing and it was going in the right direction. And they also, I think, just recognized that the kind of scale and ambition of it just would take a bit more time. Like, we have 60 VFX shots in this film. It's a short film. We have 60.
And tell me about the cast and finding the cast and working with kind of getting them up. Like, what's your process there?
Well, we went into Screen Ireland with a wild swing, saying that I was trying to cast Brendan Gleeson as the creature and Donald Gleeson as the son, and I didn't have somebody in mind for the mother at that point for Anne. And we reached out to those people, and their representatives came back and said, thanks but no thanks. Just perfectly fair. And we work with a casting director. So we work with Anya O'Sullivan. We've worked with Anya on a bunch of projects. She cast the last project that I did as well. She cast, which had a bunch of kids in it, and it was like a 9-month casting process, and she was there for all of that. So I feel very, safe with Anya. I think she makes good suggestions. So yeah, she was the one who came back with the lists of the people, and I think Chris was an easy, when Chris Wally was suggested, I was like, yeah, if we could get Chris Wally, I think he would be perfect. I can 100% see him in that role.
he's really blown up since as well.
Yeah,
Like his
yeah, and
role
you
in
kind of
Lies We Tell, it's really like he's kind of like, he probably would have been more perceived to be one note as the young offender, and now he's like actually he's that was
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'd end up I was you know for my money job sometimes I end up doing behind the scenes stuff. So I actually did behind the scenes on Lies We Tell, and so I met him acting, doing some of those drama scenes, and then I was interviewing him and chatting with him. So I knew he had those chops as well because the role is, the roles in my film I guess are like you're always balancing. There's a certain amount of comedy in it, but it's also like it's grounded in drama, and it has to be. It's not very broad, I guess, the comedy. Um, and then Mary McAvoy was suggested as the neighbor character, and I thought that was like I was like that would be brilliant. Like a previous film of mine has Rose Henderson who played Sister Assumpta in Father Ted. And I had a great time. She was amazing in my film as well. And I feel like maybe that's becoming a little niche of mine of just like casting pop culture icons from the 90s back in movies. So Mary was great. And then, yeah, we've struggled a little bit to find the central character. And Andrea Irvine, who ended up playing it, was suggested a few times. And I was a bit hesitant because Andrea typically gets cast as these kind of strong authoritative figures, and she's from the north, so she still has a northern accent, and I was fairly adamant. I'm from Limerick, and I was kind of adamant to feel like it was from Limerick or Munster at the very least. I didn't want it to be Wicklow or Dublin, or I wanted the accents to be congruent to the setting. And but she's such a good actor, and I said, look, if she wants to chat, I'll have a chat with her. And we met and we kind of clicked, and she understood the character, and she was actually very excited about the chance of getting to do again a character that A wasn't in her own accent, and B was kind of more comedic, or at least had a comedic kind of streak to it. And yeah, so that was, after meeting her, I felt very confident, and I was like, okay, this is going to be a fun process. I got my sister to record all the lines, and I just would voice note them to Andrea so she could hear the accents. She could try and get that accent down.
Dialect coach on the credits.
Yeah, yeah.
God, that's fabulous. And what's your process in working with everybody then? Like, do you have long discussions? Do you reference other source materials like that? How do you kind of relay that information to your actors about who your characters are?
Um, like we did one rehearsal with Mary and Andrea, like in a room. I think I did one with Chris over Zoom, but like just a chatting thing that we kind of talked through stuff. But because he was based in London, so I couldn't do it in Dublin. And I mean, the process was basically what I've learned over the last number of years of doing this is like, it's not my job to do the acting. It's an actor's job to do the acting. So as long as when we're chatting it out, if I get a sense that they kind of get it, then I don't really want to tell them how to do it. I just want to, it's fun for me to be surprised on set. I love when actors turn around to do something that you never would have guessed in a million years. It's like, it's usually, I generally ruin the take because I'm laughing in the background and they're like, okay, we need to do that again. It's like, okay, let's just do that again. A lot of my directing actors is basically, that's really great. Can we do that, but a little bit quicker, and take out that big pause that you could park a truck in? Can we just take out that pause and just shorten everything? But again, I think if you cast, I feel very instinctual with actors. I'm like, it's like if I feel like they're the right person, then I trust that they're the right person.
Brilliant. So Jackson, how do you feel about being in the role as an actor, like being in front of the camera? I mean, you're probably used to being in front of the camera in terms of that. And how do you sort of go around, how do you find your actors that you want to work with?
So I love being in front of the camera myself, if you couldn't tell. But yeah, I think I've tried to do films that I've written the scripts and I've acted and directed in it, and it's just too hard. I think, like I'm I'm one that has a very Paudie was saying, very instinctual feelings towards people. And if anything, like you're your biggest critic. So if you're directing yourself, it's you're never going to be happy with the take. You're always going to do it once more, and you're kind of gonna break down the perfectionism of it and just end up hating the entire scene. So it was very important for me this time to be like, right, I'm stepping back from acting and I am purely directing and writing this film. That's it. So it was actually my very, very good friend Elliot who plays Jake. He's phenomenal. And
But the actor is creator. The
oh, the
Yeah,
actor's
yeah,
creator one.
sorry. Yeah,
Yeah, the actors creator one. That one was tough. I think, it was very fun to act in front of the camera myself, but it was there was always a lot of people around me, which I was never used to. When it's myself recording, it's just me and the camera, and I can just chat and I can get everything wrong 100 times and not have to worry about it. But it was also very kind of like very I don't even know what word I could use, but it was very comforting to have my brother on set with me.
yeah.
Don't get me wrong, like we kill each other all the time, but the fact like if I was getting stressed about a take or if I was getting nervous thinking, like maybe I didn't deserve this grant, somebody else could have got it, I don't know what to do, he'd just put me into a corner and just be like, look, just breathe, you're fine, you've got this. And we're very used to making comedy films. Like that's what me and my brother make. We love making them. We find like just slapstick comedy like the funniest thing ever of just make it up on the spot, go with it, let's see how it runs. And we have a phenomenal time doing that. So when we had to step back and go, okay, right, this is drama, this is serious, we gotta, be strict with each other. There was a scene at the end of it, where, his character says to me, like my character basically in that film, which was called Boxed In, he he had to try and prove himself as a man to his brother. And by doing that, he entered into his brother's MMA competition that he wasn't being involved in anymore. And he ends up getting, excuse the language, the shit kicked out of him. And Jordan's character has to pull me aside and be like, that's not what makes a man. You just have to give me time. I don't think yet you're less of a man. I don't think that you're wrong. I don't think that you're, faking anything. I just need time to process this. That's all this is. You don't have to prove yourself as a man. And doing that scene with him, and we were both getting very emotional. We had to look each other in the eye, and for before we did the take, we were like, right, get the giggles out now, get the giggles out now. Like we have to go back to 15-year-old me really breaking down in front of you and you not being happy. Like I need that back from you. And the directors were just phenomenal. I think it was really cool that we had two directors for that film. One was a transgender male and one was a cis male. So they were seen from both perspectives. So one director would direct Jordan and one would direct me. And it was just to make sure everybody felt like really understood and felt in that film. But yeah, I much prefer now kind of being behind the camera and just taking care of that. But I don't mind being in front of the camera every now and then.
Yeah, because I'm just wondering, like, does that give you more empathy when you do become, when it is your turn to be the person, sorry, controlling
A
the
hun- a
conversation?
100%, like this cast was two of them were my friends. Elliot is one of my best friends. I adore him. Like we're always FaceTime each other. He lives over in London, and that's why Paddy was saying, with script adaptations and sorry, not adaptations, but kind of like fixing the script as you go, kind of. It was only when we were actually shooting the scene at the kitchen table where they're just chatting away, and it's one of the kind of key scenes of the film, where I said to Elliot, I was like, we've never even explained why you have a London accent. We haven't, it's an Irish film and we haven't done that. And I was like, you know what, before she asks you this, she's going to ask you why you have a different accent to your mom. And then we're going to roll into the next question. And he's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, perfect. But I think it's a lot harder to direct your friends. But when you've already been in that kind of passenger seat of what it's like being directed, it's a lot easier to, like you said, have empathy. Like not everyone's going to get it right on the first go. Doesn't mean they're a bad actor. People can be nervous. People can just be in their own world. Like for me, some people can have ADHD, so they're just zoning out, they're forgetting their lines, it's whatever. So definitely having the experience behind the camera, I think has made me a lot more of an empathetic director and just kind of like understanding towards people. I don't think I had to give out to Elliot once, or like the only time I was actually, kind of laughing with him was there was a crying scene at the end. And I was like, okay, that like lines are amazing, but the crying, it's just not working for me. I was like, I feel like we're really trying to force it. So I just need you to embody like a time that you really just like felt heartbroken, like really heartbroken. We had to let him sit by himself for a few minutes, put his earphones in, get into the zone. And if that meant, going a bit overtime with the scene that we were filming, I was like, no, I need him to just really take his time. I'm not gonna force him to cry because that's when we're gonna get the worst shot ever. So I was like, you do what you have to do, and when you're ready, just call us back in, light and set up, cameras ready to go. You just let us know when you need to go. And he was like, okay, perfect. And I think, having Linda in that scene, and she was just phenomenal playing my mom in the film. She really like her and Elliot just clicked. Like they'd never met before, ever. And the first night of them filming together, when we were like resetting a scene, they had like 3 cups of tea each, sitting on the couch, blanket over the two of them, like sharing a blanket, just talking about life and experiences and growing up and just all these amazing things. Like me and Sean are running around stressed, being like, that light's not wrong, and this place shouldn't be here, and we need to fix this and this. And they're just chatting with a cup of tea, being like, oh my God, I've been there. I love this. I love this. And me and Sean stood for a second. We're like, these two are literally like mom and son. Like they just clicked. Like it's just perfect. And then Sophie, who played Maria, again, Elliot had never met her before. We done one I think little Zoom reading. But when they came on set, I really said to them, I was like, right, before we get into any filming or anything like that, you guys can go off, chat, do what you have to do. The last thing I want to do is put you in a scene and be like, go. When you have never spoke before. So like while we're setting up, you guys go get to know each other. We're gonna do everything here. Whatever you need, just give us a shout. So I think very much like as much as being a director is, such a big thing to say, you do have to like bring back to the human side. Like, like it's not easy to act. I think a lot of people think it's very easy to act. It's not, especially for such emotional scenes, which this film was just a massive emotional scene. I think, I had to just really like let the characters do whatever let the actors do whatever they had to do to feel in time. And especially with Elliot, Elliot's actually deaf as well. So a lot of the times on set, he would have like we'd have scenes where he's waking up and he'd have his hearing aids out, and he wouldn't know when I said action, because I'd be behind the camera. He couldn't read my lips, so we had to like make up like this was action. So I'd put my hand above the camera and just do this, and Elliot would know, okay, we're filming, we're good to go. So it was really cool to kind of have those moments as well to adapt around the actors and make sure everybody had everything they needed. Because Elliot would sometimes get, very emotional in the scene. He'd be like, look, I just need to take my hearing aids out for a bit. If you need me, just come into the room, but like don't knock, just come in because I won't hear you. And we'd have jokes about it on set and stuff. And it was really nice. I think, being around the different actors is just the best thing you could do, just to learn about all these different people and different backgrounds and different I can't think of the word, but kind of like resources you can provide for people. It's really lovely.
And do you feel like it was a progression? So doing the actor's creator role, but recreating your story, and then now sort of taking the helm as director. Did you see that as sort of a natural progression in your work, or just a different role?
I think so. Yeah, I think, with actor as creator, there was such a funny scene in Boxed In where I was fighting this guy Max, and it was the first time I'd ever done stunt coordination. It's the first time I've ever done a stunt in my life. And Max is like Calvin Klein level ripped. He's huge, and we have this funny picture of me standing beside Max. Like I'm like 5'6". At the time, I was like maybe like 52 kilos. I was a very small guy. And I'm just standing there like this. And Max is just like huge. And there was so many roles I had to take on for that film that sometimes, like, don't get me wrong, looking back at it, it was an amazing experience. But I just couldn't really enjoy it as much as I wanted to, because as much as I was trying to act, I was also getting pulled to talk about budget, and I was getting pulled to talk about location. And it was very tough for me to stay in those emotional states of like, my brother doesn't like me. I'm about to get beaten up. This guy has just, made fun of me for being trans. It was very hard to do that when I had to talk to the location people that were like letting us use the youth center for the hall, and then the directors are like, how much more time do you want to use on this, and then how much budget do we have for this, and can we reshoot this in your mom's house? And it was a lot. And then just being able to just be like, I remember sitting down the crew for ballet, and I was like, I just want to direct. Any roles you guys want to take, go for it. It's a gushy. Take whatever you need to take to make yourself feel more comfortable. But I just need to just direct, and that's that, if that's okay with everyone. And Sean was like, yeah, of course. Dan was an amazing producer. Katie was phenomenal with the production design. Like this room right now that I'm in is my office, and we flipped it into Jake's bedroom, which was just insane. Like it was like an overnight thing. Like Dan and Katie came over. We just ripped everything out, put it into the hallway for 5 days. and just kept this room as Jake's room. Like Elliot and his roommate slept here when they came over from London. But like it was such a micro budget that we had an air mattress. So every time somebody sat down, it would be like, "Arr," like you'd hear it so loudly. So Sean was just phenomenal of taking that out of the last scene because it's so emotional. His mom sits down on the bed, and all you can hear is the air mattress creak. And I was like, Sean, please, if we can get rid of that, I'd be so happy. But yeah, no, it was definitely just a lot better to be able to step back and just let the actors have what they had. Everybody had the one role. There was no pressure to try to take on anything else. If you wanted to give a hand, that was great. But yeah, I think actor as creator really taught me, step back and do one thing if you can. If you need to do two, okay, that's fine. But like, really focus on the one thing as best as you can.
Oh, brilliant. And Aisha, tell me about working with your cast. How do you find them? How do you nurture them? What's your process? Oh, sorry, you're on mute. Ah,
So I think working with actors is one of my favorite things. And like with like Why the Sun and Moon Live in the Sky, it was actually like Anita's first acting role as well. So she plays Diana, and like Anita's unreal. Like she also goes by Faye, like that's her stage name because she's mostly a musician and things like that. And like she's so talented. Like we've worked together, and like we've co-directed a music video together and stuff like that. But it was sort of her first time stepping on camera as like an actor and things like that. So I was trying to be like very like nurturing as much as I could, and like very like patient. Not that there was much to be patient with. Like her and Daniel had a really good dynamic. Like I made sure to do like workshops with them like before the shoot as well, just so they'd be so comfortable as best friends on set. And like, like everyone sort of got on really well. And I think like that energy on set is so important for an actor to make sure that they can give their best performance. They need to be comfortable, and like for everyone actually as well, so they're comfortable, so they can sort of work to their best of their abilities. So it was always trying to keep things like light for them as well. And like I think like sort of knowing what language to use when you want something from someone, because you never want to be like, oh, like be sadder in this scene, even though that's what you want. Like you sort of want to phrase it in like a better way in which you can actually truly pull something out of an actor. And like Daniel was just like really like, I think he like really embodied what I wanted Saul to be. So we didn't do like auditions or anything. It was just I casted based off vibes. I was like, I feel like you have this character's vibe so perfectly, like, and it played off, like sort of like using like your gut instinct sometimes as a director is important. I feel like especially since I'm like quite young, that's something that I sort of have to like trust a lot more rather than like being like, oh, I've got so much experience and like so much this. Like it's now I sort of just have to trust my gut with it until it sort of like further develops and things like that. So in terms of like that casting process, it was like very seamless. And initially, actually, for like the role of like Priscilla, who does the little graduation speech, we actually had a different actress attached to the role, but she had to like drop out last minute. So Enya was called like the day before, and like she was just such an amazing like addition to the cast. Like
she's perfect. Yeah.
she's so
Great like energy for that role.
yeah, like she just nailed it straight away. Like we had like one or two conversations before going for it, but like she knew exactly sort of what we were looking for, and like sort of explained to her like, and I wouldn't usually like tell an actor like a reference character, but it was such a small little scene. I was like, oh, you know that little weird girl from Finding Nemo, the little head brace. I was like, that's her vibe. I was like, that's her vibe. Like, and she was like, oh, I've got it. Like, that's perfect. So yeah, so I love working with actors. I think like something that was really strange though is like sort of like the movement of the actors where you don't see their heads and stuff like that. That was odd because like you're sort of blocking, and like sometimes like someone would say something in like a weird way and I was like, oh, like I don't need to do that again, like people won't hear that, but like it's instinctually you want to be like, oh, could we do it again, but could you say it more like that? But I was like, it's going to be gibberish anyhow. So that was really odd and interesting, like odd and interesting. And then like for the Deb scene, oh my goodness, that was like a lot of like the extras and the crew and like just everyone like dancing, and like we were obviously blaring like different music on the actual day, and like it was one of my favorite things to shoot. Like it was just like the energy in that room and like the energy of everyone sort of like giving it their all, and like I knew that was always going to be like quite emotional for me to do. And because I just like I love that just burst of joy and youth and energy, and like I think in the script I wrote it as like teenagers being like teenagers for the last time, and like it was just that energy there that I was just so like happy with and so proud of. And like I sort of enjoyed like every moment like making that film. And like it's the thing, I watch it back so much. And I like, usually you watch back your work and you'd be like, ugh. I'm just like doughy-eyed watching it. Like, this is so cute. This is adorable. Like, I haven't gotten sick of it yet. So I'm really excited to like see it on the big screen and like see the cast on the big screen. And like, I'm very happy with it. Because obviously I know like, oh, it's not a perfect film, but like, it was definitely, I'm the target audience, Like, I made it for the target audience. I'm very happy. Like, and that's like something I'm very grateful for because I haven't had that sort of with like a film project fully yet, as like I'm sort of like developing like my voice or whatever as a writer and a director. So yeah, but like the cast were just phenomenal. And like Daniel, I think I met like because I used to do like extras, like I used to be like an extra and stuff. And like I met, and like anytime as like a director, I was in film school, I always keep an eye out for who they choose as like a featured extra. Cause like most of the extras are like just up and coming actors who are just trying to be on set. So I was like, this is gonna be great for me trying to cast things. I was like, it's gonna be great. So that's how I met Daniel. And like, yeah, it was like Braille and like with Anita, like she's also from Tala as well. And like just like we'd been following each other online for a while and like obviously like knew each other from like the music that she'd done as well. So like I think she had mentioned like randomly one day that she had done like acting classes. And I was like, Anita, you shouldn't have told me that. I was like, you shouldn't have told me that. Like I need to get you in something immediately. Because before I even knew she had done that, I'd always think like you ever just see someone, you're like, oh, you'd be so great on camera. I feel like and I work a lot with like newer actors and like people with not as much experience, just with like what the script calls for or whatever, like certain things that it needs. And I sort of don't want to stray from it too much. That was really nice. And it was like really something special, sort of working with like a Nigerian Irish cast as like a Nigerian Irish director as well. Like that was really beautiful. And like my mom was like helping tie headscarves and stuff like that. And like Anita like code switching to like talk to the aunties and things like that. Stuff that came like very like naturally to the culture and like to this very specific niche of being without having to like over explain everything to people, sort of just being like, this is their world and this is their life. That's how they live it, which was very nice. Yeah.
Oh, and it's so exciting. Like it's such a gorgeous film. I'm so glad because sometimes you do get like I was chatting to somebody who made a film there and they were like, I just get through it. I just get through the whole process and I just get out the end of it and then I can enjoy it. So it's lovely to see that you're actually enjoying, but you do like it is a joyous film. So it's something that's really beautiful to watch.
Quick point about the films from the other two guys that it's lovely that the films are not just about like obviously they're very their specific experience of who they are, but also that they're generally about like young people or people their age, which I think is so important because quite often I've seen in the past younger filmmakers tend to try and make films about older people or older experiences that they're maybe not as checked in with. And also I'm sick of looking at people, films about people in their 40s like I am. I just want to see, I want to see what young people want to make films about their contemporary, actual lived experience now. So that I found very exciting as well. It's just like, especially with Aisha's film, it's just like, oh, this is a fun, exuberant world and it's about being young and it's a kind of a reflection of being young now rather than, again, a kind of oh no, I need to make something that's, quote unquote, mature and dramatic and about an older experience. So yeah, I thought that was very exciting from both of those.
Yeah, definitely agreed.
Yeah, like thanks so much. I think like especially like at this age or whatever, because I'm 23 now, and obviously that's sort of about like secondary school, and like that's such a universal experience. But I think like something that's always in the back of my head as like an artist or as a writer is that like, oh, like the further I get away from those experiences, I feel like because I think one thing I never want to forget how it felt to be a teenage girl and how intense that was, and like how all consuming it was, and how scary the idea of being 23 was. So I think like that's why I sort of like that's why I sort of really enjoyed making that film because I was like, God, like I got to remember how it feels to be a teenage girl. Because sometimes I'm like, oh, like she acting a bit bratty, or she's like, I was like, yeah, well, so were you, I was like, so were you, like, so was everyone, and like everything feels so intense, and like your best friend is your whole world, and like it's just like a feeling that I hope I don't forget but eventually I probably will. So I was like, while I can, it's sort of nice to sort of make work about that time. I think it's a very beautiful thing.
Yeah, and just going back to what Paddy said as well, again, thank you so much for the kind words. I think like when it came to making Farfalle, I didn't want it to be, another one of the films around the trans experience where it's always like the older trans guy or the older trans woman, or the older trans person, having such a hardship life. And I think going back to what you said earlier, it was very much taking inspiration from Heartstopper, which is a show that I just absolutely love. I remember watching the first season, binging it in one night, and just remembering exactly how it felt to have my first crush and being so scared to talk to them and the little sparks you feel when like you're near them and stuff like that. So it was really important to us to still have those like youthful vibes of, they really don't really know what love is right now. Like it's still such a massive concept to them. And for him to feel so deeply about someone and someone feel that back for him at such a young age, it just like is to show like you have a whole life of love ahead of you. You have a whole life of experiences ahead of you. And that's, one of the lines from Siobhan's, but the Siobhan character is, you know, um, it's, she was meant to come into your life to show you the love that you deserve so you can keep going on in life and living happily. Like you're gonna find somebody else. She's meant to be there. It's not that she's gone out of your life. She's meant to show you what you need in life and then you move on. And I think, for Aisha's film as well, it's very much like um facing the inevitable. Like these, you're gonna face the bad, you're gonna face the good. But when you have the right people around you, it makes it so much easier. And then like I only texted Paddy last night, telling him that I'd watched this film and I was, breaking my shirt laughing. It was so funny. But it also had such the Irish mammy vibes of like, my mom would always say, I didn't even buy myself a pair of underwear for this holiday. I need something for myself. And to have that with such like um family roots and undertones of like, help around the house, but also like moms need love too. Moms need to be helped too, but also like the selfish side of moms at the same time. It was just it's nice to see such a different mix. Especially to understand everyone's films, like Paddy was saying, like you don't need to really over explain. The same with Aisha's, you don't need to over explain the fantasy side of it. Like it's so understandable, which is really nice, I think, to especially like the younger audiences as well.
Yeah, it is. And it's so like I think it's so we're coming up now to the Galway Film Fleadh. It's going to be time to celebrate it, to celebrate your screens. And it is premieres for everybody, is it?
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah,
nervous?
I'm very nervous. I'm very nervous.
I'm like part nervous, but once again, like I haven't seen it in a cinema screen yet. So I'm also like very excited for that. Cause like I program shorts as well for like different things like that. And my favorite thing is like I love shorts as their own thing. And like I love watching shorts. I think a lot of people sort of see shorts as like just a jumping off point to your future, which is so fair. But I sort of see shorts as their own fun little thing. And I'm like, oh, this is great. Because you get a real insight into like, I don't know, real insight into someone's like psyche, what they really want to say with the short. So I'm very excited to see like my film on the big screen and all the other films on the big screen, especially I think there's one part in Pete, I think where like his face like falls, like he's putting his face back on. I was like, oh, that's gonna make me squirm. I was like, it's
Yeah,
making
well,
me squirm on my laptop. I'm gonna be like, ooh.
hearing the noises, my shoulders went back like that. I was like, oh,
Yeah, so it's just stuff like that that I'm like, oh, I can't, because like it's just so different when you get to be in a cinema. Everything is so enhanced and so big and so beautiful, and like the colors pop, and you're like, this is the grade I meant for everyone to see, like not the one on my computer. So yeah,
Yeah.
so like I'm very, very excited for that. So yeah, I think that'll be a lot of fun. I think Polly, especially with yours, you have like such like you have such a good use of like location and stuff like that as well. So I'm really excited to see like that like cinematic element just
I do have one question
Yeah.
for
Great.
Paddy
Thanks so much.
today. It's probably a
Sure.
very silly it's probably a very very silly question, but it just looked really well. I'm assuming the tractor moving by itself was visual effects, yeah,
Yes. Yeah. It's
because
wild, isn't it?
it looked amazing. Like so,
Well,
I was
well,
like, oh my
it,
God.
well, it is a tractor. But there's a guy in the tractor in the original who just paint. I mean, we just painted it. Somebody a friend of mine spent 2 weeks painting out a guy driving a tractor in a 20-second shot.
Film
I
is,
think
my
I might have
God.
broken him.
That's amazing.
film is mad.
Yeah,
It's so crazy.
Because there's always like little
yeah.
things
No,
that you do that you're like, and what other job would I be doing this in, you know? Yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of stuff as well in my phone. It's very obviously where visual effects are, and then there's other stuff where it's like, I was painting. You're painting out stuff in the background that just it was an accident on the day or something that like was giving the story away. But yeah, no, it's kind of wild. I was very nervous about screening till about a month ago because most of my VFX hadn't been delivered. So I was kind of freaking out that it's like, oh God, we're coming up to the Galway premiere, and I have a chance to kind of get these VFX. Now we worked with some very talented people, so I was also like, they're very talented. They're working at the height of their powers. I'm sure to be fine. But yeah, we again, in the spirit of the overkill that we did for this film, we had a tech screening in the Lighthouse. So I've seen it on the screen already, big screen already, and I'm confident that will play, because I've had shorts in the past, play that I've done at home and then do a grade, and then I go see them in Galway or somewhere, and I've been disappointed, so I've had to come back and regrade them. So it was important for me for this one to kind of, as much as we can, mitigate any kind of just try and get it on big screen ahead of time, just to make sure we know it works, because again, there's so many effects and stuff as well. It's very easy to watch the VFX on small screen, that's working fine, and then see it on the big screen and realize that like, oh, this looks awful.
Well, it looked great. I had it on a big TV when I was watching it, that one, and it looked great. So I was like, oh, that will look lovely. And it's a surround sound. Like, I know it's well compressed in Vimeo, but I was like, the colors and everything, I was like, oh, that's lovely. Okay, well, oh my God, so we're so excited. So I cannot wait to see them on the big screen, and a huge congratulations to everybody. We'll toast you in the rowing club.
Indeed, I'll see you there.
Thanks so much.
Great,
Thanks,
guys. There's still time to pick up your tickets at galwayfilmfleadh.com. So enjoy the festival, and we'll see you down there.